everybody. Welcome to episode 26 of Powerbombshells. We're just two broads talking about the wrestling that we watched, and we watch a lot of it.
Boy, do we.
There's been a
She's
there's
right.
there's been a lot going on. We've been making our way through the G1 tournament and AEW, and there's always something. And then I went to a show this weekend on Friday, so a lot of wrestling.
A lot of wrestling, too much wrestling.
Can there ever be? Yes, there can be.
Well, I mean, it's not like bad because I watched a lot of really good matches during the G1 this week.
Yeah,
and
some good stuff there for real.
I was happy with the final, and it's as close as a G1 has felt to a real G1 pre-plague G1 final as one has felt in a while.
Yeah,
so, I mean, I felt a little
and
more.
the four blocks didn't take away from it. I think it added to it, especially on the semifinals day. I think that really added to the G1 this year, and so that was nice. It ended up not, because it seemed like we weren't sure with four blocks. They're like, how is this going to play out? But it ended up making, especially because, and we'll get to it a little bit more when we talk about the G1, but like there was the potential for a 7-way tie on Tuesday.
I know, yeah, so, and like, that was interesting.
That's really cool. And I actually, because I was like, listen, I've watched all at this up to that point. It would have been 19 nights. I was like, I've watched all 19 shows. Let me have the chaos. Give me the 7-way tie. I would have been fine with that. It would have been insane. But yeah, so I enjoyed this G1 a lot.
Yeah, same. It was better than I expected. That when it came down to, they're not going to do fans, they're doing this new thing, and I was like, fear the change. I was like, all right, embrace the change. The change was good. I really did. I also enjoyed it. It was nice to see Juice Robinson finish a G1 for a year, not on the sidelines,
and not breaking his hand midway through,
and also like in a position where he was in a good spot and he was
and that was they really advanced a lot of people here. Like they did, David, like we've talked about a few times, David Finlay, like he looked incredible.
Yep.
He's looked really good. They've made him like a serious threat. He's not just Juice's former tag team partner. Like he's a serious threat. And then they did a really good job with Tama Tonga, like making him, especially out, as he's not in Bullet Club anymore. He's by himself now. I guess we're just going to go right into this G1.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're like jumping your show that you saw. And
well, we can start with G1 and circle back around if we need to.
That's fine. We're allowed to change, and there are notes.
Yeah, we'll go back to it. I'll get back to it. So we'll just listen. We're already on the G1 track, and then we'll do it real quick. So, but yeah, they made Tama Tonga looked really great. So if you. Hopefully this is not a spoiler alert because it's been a few days now. But if you have not watched the G1, then
hang on, wait.
Okay, good, because I was going for it. See, okay, so
I got the cue.
Yes. So if for some reason you have not caught up on G1, you want to stop listening now because we're going to spoil everything. But yeah, so
there it is again. We warned you. You've been warned.
You have been. All right. Okay. If you haven't fast forwarded, that's your fault, and don't at me when you get spoiled. So the semifinals.
We gave you ample graphics.
We did. So the semifinals was Okada versus Tama Tonga and Will Ospreay versus why did I just forget? It was Naito, right?
Yeah,
Naito. Yeah. And so both matches were really good, but Tama Tonga looked excellent. I really like that they're pushing him forward, and so we kind of got some new, not necessarily new single stars out of it, but it seems like they are putting newer people in different pictures, which is nice that they're kind of elevating them. So Finlay and even ELP, like he's been elevated because he was in BOSJ. He had a really strong tournament. He did commentary on both both BOSJ and G1. So it seems like they're trying to like really get him familiarized with, like, get fans familiar with him. And so it seems like, I guess he's made the jump to the heavyweight division now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I was gonna say him. I'm glad you brought him up, because he's one of the ones that really stood out to me. I was like, oh, he had a great tournament. It's elevating new American stars too.
Yes.
Tom Lawler and Filthy Tom and Jonah.
Right. And I was gonna say, this G1 will, I think for me, will be the one that I always refer to as the one where Jonah pinned Okada. Like, that's the biggest, regardless of the fact that, I mean, it is a big deal that I don't want to take away anything from Okada, because Okada winning his 4th G1 and winning consecutive years, like, that's a huge thing, and I don't want to.
He's Okada, guys.
But I think because he is Okada, this is why this G1 will be remembered for the one where Jonah pinned Okada on his way to winning his 2nd consecutive G1. Like, I think that's one of those things that you'll look back and you'll remember, like, in 5 years, oh, G1, that's the year that Jonah pinned Okada. Like, that will be the thing that I think stands out for a lot of people. And that's they did kind of, like I said, the last week, like, it was a little weird that his following match, he lost via count out to Lance Archer, so that was a weird way to follow it up. But I think he's finished strongly throughout the rest of the tournament. Like, I think Jonah is, I don't know that it sounds, I think he will probably stand strong. I don't think he'll make the jump to being in Japan full time. I mean, it's definitely possible that he will be, but I kind of think maybe they will keep him in strong a little bit longer.
I do believe that they'll send him back and make him maybe put the belt on him the way that a lot of people have said in the past, which would be absolutely fine with me.
Yeah. And that's not to take anything away from Fred Rosser. Fred Rosser is a great wrestler. He's his story that he had with Tom Lawler was fantastic during Tom Lawler's title run. And, so I hope Fred gets to elevate it a little bit more. But it does seem like his time is ticking, and that they think very highly of Jonah. And then they even had, and then, like, there's Tito. He had, the fans really liked him kind of in the same way as Royce Isaacs. Tito has definitely shown himself a lot more over the last couple of months, and then really with this G1 and just being there. And so that makes TMDK even stronger. I think, even though they didn't win the tag titles, like, they're still they're a really prominent tag team for Strong, which I think is really good. So yes.
Well, and they like their, like, heel factions that do shenanigans.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a perfect fit for the Japanese, like, presentation, the undercard stuff that they love to do. Like, I mean, you could see some of those guys. I have been reading, I mean, Dave mentioned it both on Observer Radio and I think in the newsletter, is that there are probably going to be foreign stars on this year's Wrestle Kingdom.
Yep.
So and they're definitely setting up for that. Like, it seemed like it.
Yeah. And also, and then we also have, like, Zack Sabre Jr. has, during the whole G1, like, he was making references to Danielson still, because he didn't get that match. And so he is still making, and it is, because somebody wondered if it would be on All Out, which possibly, but that's a Wrestle Kingdom level match. But then again, All Out is AEW's biggest pay-per-view of the year. So, I mean, you could make the argument that, it is also an All Out worthy match as well. And so maybe they do one here, and then we get Danielson versus DSJ2.
I mean, he's coming off the tournament. That would be the only reason I would say that's a daunting tournament.
But Ospreay's going to be in the trios.
Yeah, I guess
week.
You're right.
And he was in the final against Okada. So,
you're totally right.
Yeah. But I mean, I see, and then because somebody was making the point that they think, because I had wondered, and we'll get to the CM Punk thing about how they moved up CM Punk versus Mox, because I was like, well, you kind of have to have that level of a match. So maybe they're going to do. So I was like, well, then, you know, they kind of have hinted at Punk versus Ospreay on and off over the last couple of years. They both said they'd like to face the other. So I was like, maybe they do that at All Out. But then somebody was pointing out that the stuff with Pac, because Pac keeps saying things about Ospreay, and that makes a little more sense, at least right now. Maybe we do Punk versus Ospreay like down the road, or maybe that is a Wrestle Kingdom match. So maybe it is Pac versus Ospreay, because, you know, Ospreay will obviously already be here because of the trios tournament. So it does seem like there's going to be foreign talent as far as AEW, but it also seems like some of the, like Jonah and Filthy Tom and like the people from Strong are going to be some of the foreign wrestlers that are represented at Wrestle Kingdom this year.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And Wrestle Kingdom, speaking of, is back to one night.
One night. I had that on my notes too. That's, I mean, I don't know how anybody else feels about it, but I personally am happy.
I am. I'm happy about it too. It's hard. And I know, and I get it. I know people they say the same thing when they have to get up and watch WrestleMania 2 nights in a row now. And I understand. It's hard getting
up and watching. But WrestleMania only went to 2 nights because Wrestle Kingdom went to 2 nights.
Yeah, and but they're going to stay 2 nights at least through next year anyway.
They made a truckload of money, and so did New Japan. But I think that they also lost a good bit of that truckload of money, so it's one of those things that it's a lot. So or maybe I guess like some of the conversation was that they'll book a different kind of show the next night or something like that. Or maybe do a Stardom show or something.
Well, and they're good. New Year Dash has already been advertised for the following night. So
there you go.
Yeah, so they could.
That's fine.
Yeah. And so then they'll just do the 2 nights instead of the 3 nights, it sounds like, which is good. And you know, and Okada obviously we've said that he won this tournament. Okada made the comments post match that he thinks that since he won the G1, he should be guaranteed a title shot at Wrestle Kingdom, and he should be in the main event, which I agree with him. I mean, if you're going to win the G1, then it's kind of like a Money in the Bank briefcase where, I mean, obviously that you can cash that in whenever, but I mean, you're guaranteed a title shot. And so I think with the G1, you should be guaranteed a title shot. And I think that
there's a thingy coming up called Burning Spirit, which I think is essentially what, I can't remember what they used to call it in the fall. But you do the thing where you have to defend the contract to fight at Wrestle Kingdom one more time in the fall, and just to be sure.
Just to be sure.
But I mean, it doesn't make sense. Why would you not have Okada versus Jay White? Like, why would you not give him another title
assuming Jay White retains through Wrestle Kingdom, and I don't have any reason to suspect that he wouldn't. Retain and be the champion in January. I don't have any but I mean, then again, they swerved me, and I thought Okada was going to hold the title all the way through Wrestle Kingdom because it was the 50th year anniversary, and so they swerved me, and so maybe they swerve us again. But most likely, it sounds like Jay White will probably have the title, and like why wouldn't you? That's a main event level match. So I mean, unless they're finally going to give Haramu the main event, which is what he wants. He wants the Super Junior. He wants the juniors to main event Wrestle Kingdom, and you know, he was really pushing for that. And I hope that they do eventually get that, and I hope they don't make them wait like 10 years to do it. Like, I hope it's within the next year or so. But they're not really they haven't positioned. I mean, I know we have a few more months, but they haven't positioned the juniors that way. But we do have Kushida back now, and you know, he's back in the picture, and Ishimori, and they did some stuff with them on the G1 show on the final. So maybe. So I hope eventually we get to that point where but it just seems like as long as Okada's around, he's most likely going to be in the main event, or he'll be in the penultimate match right before it. Which
he is your guy. Like,
he is the guy, but
at the end of the day, it's like when you need to be safe, Okada.
Yeah. But yeah, so at least with the G1, like, I thought it was a really good tournament. I had it. New Japan World spoiled the last 2 nights of the tournament for me. I made it all the way through, no spoilers, and it was like, so on Tuesday night, it was actually earlier in the day on Tuesday, I think. I was just scanning through early morning tweets, and New Japan World retweeted the ring announcer who had picture. If I had scrolled, it was in Japanese, and if I would have missed it, but he put the pictures of Okada and Ospreay. Oh wait, no, that was on Wednesday when that happened. But yeah, so or Thursday rather that happened.
Thursday.
But the day before they also spoiled it for me because they had tweeted something and so yeah, I knew I was, but I didn't tell my sister, and I was like, just be careful. So she wasn't spoiled for anything, but I was. So I was like, next year anytime there's a big show, I'm just gonna block World until it's over with, so I don't see anything.
Mute for
well, and see, people aren't even, and it's hard to mute because people will use different combinations of words and stuff, and so I'm like, I'm just gonna block it. But but it's still, regardless of that being spoiled, the matches were still really good. I really thought they were going to let Ospreay win this, and I was not going to be happy about that. But I assumed that's the route they were going, especially because, the story they've been telling about like how he couldn't win the U.S. title, and then he almost, then Juice.
Well, he finally got it back though. Now he's got it again. So yes, and he Finley got his prize.
Yeah, so he's got it, and he then he made. I don't know if you saw his post match comments. He didn't say much. He was clearly very upset. He was sitting on the floor, and David Finley came up, and they got physical, and then Finley pinned him against the wall and told him, he was like, I want a shot at your title. And he was like, it's not even been a day. Can you give me a day? And he was like, David was like, you need to suck it up and take your L and get over it and fight me for your title. And then he was like, and then he left, and he was like, oh, and he told him, he said, I want that Will that just wrestled. He's like, that's the Will I want to face for that title. And then he was like, he sat back down and he mumbled, I can't remember if this was before or after the Ospreay, but he mumbled something about how he almost died because he had the health issues, a couple
kidney infection.
Yeah, like a month ago or a month before G1 started, or a few weeks before G1 started, and he like mumbled that, and so he's definitely very defeated. So it'll be interesting to kind of see. I mean, I guess he will have to suck it up because he's going to be in that trios tournament next week. He doesn't have much time to wallow in what happened. But yeah, so that'll be interesting kind of to see what they do. I don't see him holding that US championship very long. It seems like that's just kind of a filler thing, and maybe to bring up kind of to build the stuff with Juice, and then also now kind of building the things with Finley. I don't know if Finley gets the title and we circle back around to him versus Juice or something like that. I don't know. That seems kind of likely.
Maybe somebody on AEW will want to fight him for it.
Could be.
They'll put that on the All Out pay-per-view or something.
That's possible. Yeah, that's definitely possible. So because All Out's like 2 weeks away, and
we have 3, 4 card matches.
Yeah, and the card's still pretty up in the air as far as what the fans know, but obviously now that we've got, and so that's why I think somebody was bringing up then maybe we get Ospreay versus Pac at All Out, which makes sense considering Pac keeps saying stuff, and maybe Pac puts his All Atlantic title up against.
Oh, there you go.
I don't know if I guess they wouldn't do a title versus title thing, but maybe just a champion versus champion type thing. Maybe it's that. I don't know. It'll be, I'm sure they'll have some kind of a good story to tell with that. They're usually with their matches, they tend to play out okay. Even if it's a little messy getting there.
Yeah. I feel pretty good about it. I feel like I've been kind of like whinging about it, and then I realized that even before Forbidden Door, we were kind of having the same thing. I know some of that was a little different because we didn't know if we were going to have this guy or whatever. I mean, they didn't know if we could get this guy or that guy.
Yeah.
But I feel like the last few pay-per-views, even before that one, have been like last minute sort of, all of a sudden here's this card and you're like, I don't know how to feel about it, and then you can watch it and the pay-per-view actually turns out to be really good.
Well, and another thing I was just thinking as you were saying that, we're getting the Casino Battle Royale match, or a ladder match. I think I saw something reference for that, so I wonder if there'll be any New Japan people in that, or maybe it'll just be people from the trios. Like if they don't advance, maybe they'll put them in that. Like maybe Ozzy, like maybe they put Ozzy Open in it or something like that. I don't know.
Truthbuster.
They could put the Truthbusters because they got eliminated on Rampage. So
I do enjoy.
I was a little surprised just because they'd been pushing them so hard. I was a little surprised they had them lose to. I mean, on the one hand, it makes sense because Best Friends have been like one of the only true trios AEW's had since 2019, and even Chucky kind of alluded to that in the promo on Friday night. Or was it Trent? One of them. I think it was Chucky that said it. But he was talking about how this is something they've wanted since 2019. So they should be, but the way they pushed the Truthbusters lately, it kind of seemed like they would go further into the tournament, and they got knocked out first round. So that was kind of interesting. And right after they added Sunny, which was also kind of weird, but I thought it was funny that Danhausen moved Sunny out of the way so that he could curse Slim J.
Yeah.
He's like, not you, Sunny, move out of the way. I would never curse you. I know better.
Even I like you. Even I want you on television.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm not cursing you. He's like, move over. But yeah. So,
all right, tell me about your GCW experience.
I will. So Friday night, I went to my first GCW show, and it was awesome. They started off the show by bringing out Nick Gage. So we got the full entrance. Like, he didn't have a match because I don't think he's completely cleared from his injury yet, and they're saving him for Mox. Which is completely understandable. But we got the full entrance. Like, we got the fans who swarmed him, and so we got Emil doing his full introduction of Nick, which was really, really cool. I recorded it and I will tweet it. I haven't had a chance to edit the video, but I will tweet it just because it's awesome and I love listening to it every time. And so he got the fans hype. Of course, which was really smart to do. And then they opened with Andrew Everett versus Kevin Blackwood. I mentioned last week that Andrew Everett's been somebody that I've watched for a very long time locally, so that was really cool to see. I won't go through every match because we've got some other pressing things to get to that will probably take a lot of time. But the card was really solid. Like, we got the Los Massacos. I think I'm saying this incorrectly and I apologize, but I think it's Massacos is how you pronounce it. They are the new tag team champions. They wrestled Charlie and Everett. So that was really cool. But then we got, so I don't know if you've been keeping up with G1, but the with GCW, they have, a lot of the fans have turned on Blake Christian because he signed a contract with AEW / ROH. I
know that there's a little bit of that.
Which doesn't make any sense to me because they did not do this to him when he signed with WWE. So I'm like, and he's been wrestling in New Japan. Like, he's on Strong. Like, he was at the tape. Like, his match Saturday night just aired. His match, it was a triple threat with him and El Desperado and Haramu.
Awesome.
Fine. That match that was the main event of the Charlotte show, but they aired it last night. So it's just, I know the GCW fans, the faithful, they get weird over certain things. And I mean, I know some of it too is that then they just kind of, it becomes a thing and they just, whether they really mean it or not. And then it turns into this whole thing. It was
just
like
another way for them to generate heat between them
exactly. And so so Blake came out and most of the fans booed him. Some of them were flipping him off and just
awesome.
And they were just booing him. And then there are a section of guys near us who they were chanting that Blake was their hero, but I don't know if they were being smartasses or if they were serious. I think one may have been serious, but then the others, I'm not too sure. So we got an all heart chant started, and we were like, we're not going to have Blake thinking that everybody hates him. But he had a really good match with Joe Lando, who I've not seen before. And it was really cool. And then I heard last night Blake wrestled Masha Slamovich, I think. I want to say.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I heard he had a really good match. Of course, they booed him then last night too. But yeah, and he did this like insane like curb stomp on Joe Lando, so that was interesting to see. And I think I read that he curb stomps Masha as well. But yeah, so I don't know how much longer. And it's weird that they boo Blake and call him, and somebody called him a sellout, and I'm like, but your champion is Jon Moxley. So like, doesn't make sense to me.
That's what I love about you, Sam. You like always have all these little factoids in your brain, and you're always like, it's like you've become another person that I can go to and be like, hey, give me some, give me the skinny on these things.
Yeah, but it's just so funny. I'm like, but Jon Moxley is literally your champion, and he's been your champion for months. And
but everyone else is a sellout. Okay, right. I see how it is.
Yeah, it made me laugh because I was just like, "What are you guys doing?" I was like, "That's where fantastic. He like." Oh, it's funny, but yeah. So whatever. So I assume like, and that was another thing, like people still wrestle in GCW and AEW. Like it's not like Blake would be allowed to come back. And he even said last week when he was like addressing it officially that he had like, he didn't say I signed, but like he was like, I'll be around here a lot less. And they started booing him, and like they booed him to the point where like it was hard to hear him and stuff. So it was just weird because I'm like, well, your champion is a GCW champion and an AEW interim champion, but okay. Have fun with that. I mean, I guess as long as Blake's getting attention,
well,
and it's
different, Sam.
Very. He came there. They didn't come looking for him, but okay.
Exactly.
So the follow-up match was quite an interesting match. It was Jordan Oliver, Billy Starks, and Chris Hamrick. So Chris Hamrick used to be in ECW. He had a really famous WWE spot where he was going through the ropes and he slipped and fell on his tailbone. And so like apparently that's like what he's like. I guess most people, if they didn't see him in ECW, they associate him with that moment. And then he wrestled Ricky Morton, Kerry Morton, and Axton Ray, which I've not seen Axton before, but I've heard of him. But yeah, so it was. So of course Ricky obviously gets the rock and roll chants going all night, and the GCW fans were like eating it up. So it's really funny because the GCW people, like, they love their indie guys, but they love their old timers too. Like they really enjoy it, and so they were really into this match. And it was just, and then Chris Hamrick, like in the beginning, they took a screwdriver away from him. I guess that was another like ECW reference. So they took that away from it, and he recreated the spot where he slipped through the ropes and like recreated it. So nice. He got the gift for it. And then, but there was a spot that was not on purpose, and I felt bad for him. He was trying to get back in the ring, and he's very tall. And I don't know if his foot slipped off the rope or what happened, but he fell on his ass. And Ricky Morton said he turned around because where we weren't hard cam, but he turned around. He's like, nobody saw that. It's okay. Just keep going. It's like, just keep going, Chris. And so that was kind of funny, but yeah. And then Ricky Morton, the highlight of the match for me was Ricky Morton did a Canadian Destroyer, which I've seen him do a few times, but like,
that's perfect for you.
I forgot that he does them, and I was like, I popped big for that. I was like, oh my god, he just did a Destroyer.
Like, this is the perfect show.
Yeah, I loved that. So it was really cool. And then but yeah, Ricky Morton and so the Mortons and Axton Ray got the win. And prior to this match, it was funny because I watched GCW, but not enough where I'm super familiar with themes.
Right.
And so I heard the theme, and like from where they had us kind of in assigned seating, whereas like we were third row, but they put us like all the S's were like on the certain side. So they like everybody who's not front row after that, they just kind of put everybody in alphabetical order by last name. And so yeah, it was really interesting because our friend, that was another thing I did not care for, is we were all in separate sides from our friends. And so like, annoying. yeah, so we were like texting each other through the show about stuff because we couldn't talk to each other. But yeah, so at one point, so music was playing and I couldn't really hear who it was, but I had turned to say something to Nikki and I saw Jordan Oliver. And so I pointed at Jordan to like get her attention and he saw me and he waved at me.
Ah!
So I waved back and I was like, stop. And then I was like, he's not even in this damn match. He was just walking to go do whatever. I don't know if he was going to the bathroom or what he was doing, but I was like, well, but that was a funny moment though. And then he ended up being awesome in the match right after.
There you go.
So the next match was the match that I was very much looking forward to. It was Revolt versus SGC, and so I was very excited for this one, obviously. And so my sister and I wore our Revolt shirts. We saw a few other people that had their Revolt shirts on too. Nice. And like we like heard, because they were like, they had a couple tag teams and we knew that this was like, we heard like the beginning of the music and Nikki and I were like up on our feet and the people behind us were like, oh, okay. Cause they didn't know who it was. So they're like, apparently they like these people. And so, that was a really cool match. They did a spot, which I recorded and I'll post it too. They did a spot with Mance Warner and Zane where they like had a beer drink off. and they were trying to get Caleb involved. Caleb doesn't drink beer. And Zane was like, get him a White Claw. And then he made a face like, I don't drink that either. And then they had Thrasher, they had Matthew Justice in there. And so, yeah, it was a fun little spot that they did. And then they did some hardcore stuff where they got like people went through tables. Poor Caleb was running around the ring. He slipped in beer and fans decided to chant, you fucked up, because he slipped in beer. But when Chris Hamrick lost his balance in the match before,
he's fine.
But Caleb running around the ring and slipping in beer, and I know that hurt when he slammed down onto the ground like that. It's like, oh god. But yeah, so they did the Revolt have done this spot a couple of times. They did it against some of you may be familiar with the Bravados, and if you watch WWE, you will know that Harlan Bravado is now Chase in WWE in NXT. He does the Chase U, and he's kind of like a who's it? Bob Knight, is that the basketball coach that had the really bad temper? I think that's
Bobby
Knight.
Yeah.
So he's kind of a play on that, and he's apparently really the gimmick is kind of, bless him, he's doing the best with what they gave him. He's like killing. From when I was still watching NXT, like that he was killing whatever they gave him.
That's a pretty old school reference, though. I mean, there's newer coaches that give out to people that.
Yeah, I think he does some other, but yeah,
fine.
so he's doing that over there. Andre Chase is his name. I was like, what is his first name? But yeah, so
it sounds familiar. But
yeah, so they were the Bravados, and they were tag team champion PWX for a really long time, or on and off, and so they've had a long story with it. So that's where, at least from what I remember, I believe that's the match where this spot originated. But they bust out, so they get the tables and they get these things ready, and you think they've got a bag of tacks, and then they open it and it's gummy bears.
Why not?
They did the gummy bear spot, which so Nikki and I like kind of thought maybe they were, and so we were yelling like, bring out the gummy bears, and they finally did, and so they got the gummy bear spot, and I have pictures. There's gummy bears all over the floor, all over the ring and stuff. It was there was one spot that they were trying, I think it was Mance and Zane, and they were supposed to go through a table that was set up in the ring, but they were not close enough to the table.
Mm-hmm.
And so they fell like right next to it. And I was like, oh no, that was not the spot that was supposed to happen. But I mean, again, it's GCW and it's this type of match, and I guess it really doesn't matter in the end. But there was a spot where they did go through tables on the outside, and so it was a lot of fun. I think Revolt really, and they did get a "This is awesome" chant during the match, which was cool.
Good.
I know some people were familiar with Revolt, and then a few weren't. And obviously, it was a very pro for all you Mance Warner haters. Mance Warner is extremely over. So the fans were firmly behind SGC But it was a really fun match. I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad that Revolt got booked because I wasn't sure that they would. And then after that, the next match was really good. It was the scrambles in GCW have gotten where they're a lot of fun, and sometimes they end up being like the best match on the card. Well,
yes,
this was really good, but then they added a lot of local people, which made it even better. So Lucky Ali was in it. Cool. Diego Hill, who is phenomenal. I've seen him in PWX a couple of times in Pure, but then he's up in DPW, and that's where he's killing it up there. White Mike, who some people may know, he's been around for a while, and White Mike was somebody that was in PWX for a really long time. He used to do some tag team stuff, and then he did a thing when they had Teddy Long was in PWX. They had him as this guest putting matches together, and White Mike was Understinker, and he was acting like Undertaker, but in the very White Mike way, which it's hard to explain if you haven't seen White Mike before, but it was really cool.
But his name is White Mike, so kind of figure it out.
Yeah, yeah.
Use your imagination, you'll probably at least get a couple things right.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'll post the pictures of him too, because you'll see. But so it was really cool to see him. And then B-Boy was in the match. And then, of course, you can't have a scramble match in GCW without Jimmy Lloyd. So Jimmy Lloyd was in it. And then the last entrance was Bojack. So I was super excited. Bojack is he's so over. And I know it's probably because a lot of people do watch DPW, and he's the DPW champion. And obviously he is from, he's in the North Carolina scene, and he's in the Charlotte scene. But man, he got the Bojack chance, which is, the people love him. Like everywhere they go, everywhere Bojack is, he's just, the fans seem to really love him, which they should, because he's fantastic. And I'm glad that he's getting all this love. So I really enjoyed this match because I had a lot of people I was familiar with in it. This was probably one of my favorite matches, just because it was funny though, because I had cheered, of course, for Lucky when he came out, but then I think it was Bojack was coming. Oh yeah, I was doing the Bojack chant, and Lucky caught me, and he looked at me and he pointed like, "How dare you cheer for Lucky? I mean, cheer for me when I come out, and then turn around and cheer for Bojack too." So that was a funny moment. But yeah, so that was a really cool match. There were some really good clips from that that I saw on Twitter later, and Bojack ended up winning, which was really cool to see Bojack get a GCW win in his debut. And then they followed that up and went right into Effie versus George South. And boy,
this was the one because I know that you were very waiting for this. So I was like, ooh, I can't wait. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, she'll get to it.
Yeah, I kind of thought this was going to be the main event, and then I forgot what the actual main event was. But yeah, so Effie comes out first. Nikki and I have our Wrestling is Gay fans, and people had their hands on their way. We're all into because he comes out to Yellow Brick Road, so everybody's singing along. Everybody loves Effie, and then George comes out and he gets on the mic, and this is where if people who are not familiar with George South probably were super uncomfortable. I mean, even though I'm familiar with George, I was uncomfortable because of the things he was saying. Like, he was just getting all, and we talked about it last week. He's a very 80s Hill, where he will say whatever it takes to get heat, and he will say inappropriate things, and very
old school,
old white man,
heel heat,
old white man. Yeah, it was like people were pissed. Like, there was a guy a couple rows in front. Like, there were a few people like just yelling "fuck you" at him. They were flipping him off. I think some of them were familiar with George. Then I think maybe some were not. I don't know how it came across to fans who were watching the show who don't know who he is, because he was saying some very just like, there was a guy that was kind of near me, and he called him a reject Geronimo. He called somebody buckwheat. He tried one man, it was an older white man, and he just was not I don't know if it was still real to him or if he just doesn't like how George talks to fans. And he was like, I couldn't hear him because he was on the other side, but I could see that he was yelling and he was very animated. And George was like, well, come get in the ring. And I was like, oh God, please.
Oh, Jesus.
And he invited somebody else to get into the ring. And it was just, and there, I have a picture of Effie.
Wow.
I have a picture of Effie. I was editing them yesterday and Effie's just standing there with his hand over his mouth like, oh my God. So, and actually I was surprised because I wasn't sure what he was going to say about Effie because obviously Effie is openly gay and does not hide it. And so I wasn't sure where George would go, but he said that Effie was a bad representation of the gay community. Which, so clearly he's been reading the internet because that's a lot of people were saying that after the match with Jon Moxley because of the things that they did in that match. If you haven't seen, there's some, there's some spots. It's not the kissing spot. It's the spot where Effie's getting choked out spot.
The masturbation spot. I mean, I'm just saying the word. I'm an adult. Like if you're all not adult enough to deal with it. Then.
Right, exactly. So that's what that spot has obviously created a lot of controversy, and and people have, and I've seen the comments that people say that Effie is a terrible representation of the gay community and just things like that. So it's like clearly George has been reading the internet, or somebody told George that people are upset with Effie, and this is why, or they at least told him that much, and so. That's all he said. He didn't get where he didn't. It could have been really bad, but luckily it was not. So Effie basically was just
maybe they were like, and okay, when you cut your promo, like you can say whatever, but
right.
Skip over whatever you think of Effie.
Right, exactly. And so
keep it to yourself. Keep that part to yourself.
Yeah, it could have been way worse, and it wasn't. And so it was just, definitely generated a lot of heat. Effie just basically was like, I'm sick of all you old dudes coming for me and want and you're the ones who want matches with me. And he was and so it ended up being a really solid match, especially because George has been wrestling for 100 years, and so it was a solid match, and it was interesting, and it was satisfying because Effie beat him, and it was like Effie beats the old white man. Oh yeah, because somebody in the crowd was yelling and called him called George South a boomer, and I was like, is he a boomer, or is he actually older than a boomer?
I don't know. He's probably a boomer. I think they're mostly. Well, no, he might be what would be the Triassic period. So he might
I don't know. I forget what comes.
Tyrannosaurus or
something like that. But yeah, so he might be aged out of the
maybe
boomer.
Maybe we need to go with a slower and like herbivore times. Not maybe.
There you go.
He's not really Tyrannosaurus. I mean, I picture like Minoru Suzuki when he's that age, being like a Tyrannosaurus or a raptor.
Exactly.
Still,
yeah.
He's more like a Brontosaurus, or that's an old one. What do you call that? A Brachiosaurus now?
There you go.
There you go. That's a Dinosaur Minute with Powerbombshells.
Yes. But yeah, so that match ended up, it was a good match. It was, didn't go completely off the rails as bad as it could have, but it was definitely interesting. But, you know, it is, it was quite something, but you know, Effie held it together, and then they followed that up, and it was we got Alley Catch and Dark Sheik versus the Ugly Ducklings. The Ugly Ducklings was a last minute announcement, like a few days before. The Ugly Ducklings I've seen them in PWX for years. They've wrestled up and down the East Coast for years. And then it was also Lance Lude is one of the members of the Ugly Ducklings, and he battled cancer, and he recently came back he's beat cancer. He's in remission, and he's now wrestling again. And so this was his first match back in GCW since the cancer diagnosis. And so I believe they were in GCW like 2 years ago, I think is what they said. So it was really cool. And it's just always nice to see somebody, you know, when a situation like that happens, to see them come back from that. And I love the Ugly Ducklings. They're so much fun. and they're great. And so that was a cool match. And then the main event is the one that I had forgotten about. And then because I was going through the card, and I'm like, who am I forgetting? And then Colby Carino comes out, and I was like, we are getting a death match. Oh God.
Did they warn you of fuckery or
No, but it was for the Ultraviolence title, so I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. So it was Colby versus Cole Radrick, who is the current Ultraviolent champion. And if you've listened to the show before, you've probably heard me say that death matches are not my thing. They stress me out. Thumbtacks stress me out. So as you can imagine, a death match is a completely different level.
So always get Sam the gummy bear bag. Never get the tack bag.
Exactly. And so I'm proud of myself. I did not cover my eyes at all.
Good girl. Nice.
I think I did. One time, I think I kind of like felt my own head after there was a spot where there was a light tube in the back of the head of somebody, and it was one thing it was funny. I was talking to somebody else after the show about this, and we were talking about it was their first death match too. We didn't realize how loud light tubes are. Like,
oh man, I was just gonna say
sounded like a gunshot. Like it.
The noise they make when they shatter is like it's its own thing.
Yeah, it is completely different than I expected.
Weird.
I did not expect it to be that loud, and they had light bulbs all over the ring, and it was just that Cole Radrick was bleeding. It was like a Jon Moxley match. He was bleeding within like 2 minutes. There's blood everywhere, and Colby's bleeding. And also a quick side note, Colby went in the first iteration of the Ugly Ducklings. It was Lance Luda and Rob Killjoy, and Colby Carino was in the Ducks for a little while, and then they had Coach Mikey, and so it was kind of nice. It was kind of cool to see. I thought about it later. I was like, oh wow! I was like, I didn't even think about it at the time that Colby followed the Ugly Ducklings, so it was a nice little realization to see that they were. And so they're doing 2 completely different matches. Wow. Colby's doing death matches now, and they're still just doing their thing, which is fun, and I love the Ducks. But yeah, so it was a super stressful match, but it wasn't as bad as I think because I've watched a few, maybe that's why it wasn't so bad. It was still really uncomfortable at times. And at one time they shattered something, and I felt a tiny, it didn't cut me, but I felt a tiny shard go across my leg, and I'm 3 rows back. And I was like, I can only imagine. And I was talking to because our friend Matthew was there, and he was on the front row, and he was like, I had to close my eyes a couple times because he was like, it's bad. And he said his girlfriend, because his girlfriend did not come with him to the show, and he was like, but she was using his account to watch, and she did not like the George South stuff. Like, she got really uncomfortable and hated that. And then she hated the main event. And he was like, this is why I did not bring you. He was like, because I knew, like, because bless her heart, the first AEW show she went to was Fight for the Fallen last year. And that was the one that was Nick Gage versus Chris Jericho. And he had told her, he was like, well, this is AEW. I don't know that they'll like how much they'll do. And then we ended up getting light tubes. We got the pizza cutter, and so she was like stressed out apparently the whole time during that match. So he was like, yeah, I knew not to have you come to GCW because I knew this was not going to be your thing. And yeah, it was one time. There was one spot though, Colby had gone through like a lot of light tubes, and he picked up the box and he dumped it out, and the instructions like fell out, and then he's like, where the hell are the light bulbs? And then he found some more on the other side of the ring, and there was the tables. They used a table. There were some chair spots. There, of course, were the spots with the broken light tubes and digging them into the forehead type of thing. So, like, I got the full like range just about. And it was, and Nicole retained.
No panes of glass.
No panes of glass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
We didn't get that one.
Simple on you.
No, they did. And so after the match ended, Nick Gage came back out, and he was like, this is why GCW is the best, and like was putting over GCW, was putting over Cole, and Colby and stuff like that. And he was just like, basically was like, because I said so, we're coming back to Charlotte. So basically he was just like, so that was nice. So hopefully they will come back. I don't know how the arena, I don't know, and that's interesting. I don't know what they knew about the death match, and like if the people working the arena, if they were like, what the hell is happening, and like they're never coming back here. So we'll see how that happens. But yeah, it was eventful. But and it was funny because yesterday I was talking to Doug, because Doug was also there. And I had said something about how I saw my first death match, and he was like, that's not true. He was like, we saw BJ Whitmer versus Steve Corino in Ring of Honor at their pay-per-view they did a few years ago. And I was like, but was that a death match? And he was like, so we went to look to see how it was billed, and it was like a no honor match is what it was called. But I was like, yeah. So basically it was an unofficial death match, because that match was super intense. It was very bloody. It was very there. Yeah, it was basically a hardcore match. So I was like, so I got an unofficial hardcore match, an official hardcore match, and they both involved a Corino.
There you go.
So I've seen Steve and Colby both do them, but so not things I expected, but it is what it is. But no, I really had a good time. I will post the picture later. I did get to meet Nick Gage.
Oh, excellent.
Yes, he stayed out after the show, and we were actually headed to the Revolt table, and we saw that Nick was out and people were kind of surrounding him, and we were like, let's just see if we can make our way over there. Matthew made his way over there. Our friend Kiefer made his way over there. And so we all just kind of stood there. People were pushing and stuff like that. And so like we had been waiting for a while, and then people just come up and like push past us and push past other people. And I was like, come on. And then like Nick was like trying to like slowly walk to the back, but also like take pictures. And he stopped. And then finally we were able, Matthew got a picture with him. And then me and Nikki got one because there were so many people waiting. Nikki and I just took one with him together instead of doing separately.
Yeah.
So I thanked him for coming, and he was like, no problem. He was like, well, we'll be back. And so that was a nice little moment to talk to him. So that was really cool. And
right on.
Yeah. And so we talked to Revolt for a little bit, and talked to Rob Killjoy for a minute, and we talked to Effie and Allie and Dark Sheik. So it was really cool. I really enjoyed the show. It was a lot of fun, and I hope that they come back to Charlotte, because I really enjoyed it a lot.
Right on. Yeah. So we both had good GCW experiences.
We did, yeah. So I know there's a lot of hesitation sometimes with some of the things that they do, but I enjoyed it. And so I if you get the opportunity to go, I would recommend going at least one time, just to kind of see what it's all about, and then you can decide if it's and they're kind of a thing that they have a little bit of something for everyone too. Then they do intergender matches, which is cool. And they do so it's not all, because I always associated with GCW with like death matches and stuff like that, and it's not all death matches. And sometimes it probably is in the state that they're running and what they can get away with doing. But they do offer a variety of matches, and there's generally tables and chairs and various ones and things like that. So, but it was fun, and I recommend, like I said, if you get a chance to go to do it. Oh, and it was I was waiting when I was waiting for Nick Gage. He was taking a picture with somebody, and he was like, "You're wearing a Mox shirt. I'm gonna fuck him up." He was just like, "I want you to know." He was like, "I'm just telling you." And the guy just laughed and was like, basically was like, "Well, do what you gotta do."
Nice.
Yeah. So, I guess we will get into a
couple. You want to address a certain person?
I do. I was just about to say, I didn't know if I wanted to do it here, but this seems like it's a good segue. This was supposed to happen.
A good spot, maybe for
so I was
to address this, since
I was gonna address this in the very beginning of the show, and then we started talking about G1, and we want a completely different.
We do what we want here. Okay,
we'll hit all our notes, and they're just in a different way now. But I would like to tell Jeff from the Dynamite show that I do accept his apology. Because apparently in the past he has hated on people who time women's matches.
Well, not specifically. I mean, it's not just it, but actually, I mean, yes, a little.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. But I accept it. But I do want to explain, because I think for people who have followed me because of this, or are new to following me and have not been following me this entire time, the reason how this all came about, like, I never was going to be the person to time matches. But then there was a conversation in 2020 about women's matches in AEW, WWE, and Impact. And so everybody was like, oh, well, women aren't getting enough time, or this company's doing this. And at the time, everybody was kind of not doing great with it. And so I was like, well, I'm going to time the matches for a week across WWE. So that means Raw and SmackDown, and AEW. That will be because Rampage wasn't on when I first started recording. So it was Dynamite, and I think it was actually just Dynamite and Dark, because I don't know that I don't remember if Elevation had started then. Maybe they had been on air by then. And then I was doing Impact. And so I did it for like a week and realized like that's not enough data to write an article. So I was like, I'm going to do it for 6 weeks and see what happens. So after 6 weeks, I wrote an article called The State of Women's Wrestling across 3 major companies. And I wrote about like what I found. And there were weeks where WWE looked really good. There were weeks where it was mostly, I think, Impact looked a little bit better at the time. And so I was like, but basically it was just, there was a lot of, because especially after the give divas a chance, or give women a chance, like, or I guess it was give divas a chance was the hashtag. Like, they did do some things where they were doing really well, but then a lot of things were regressing and things like that. And so I decided after 6 weeks, because of the feedback I was getting, I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and keep. Oh, I think part of the reason I decided to keep going was Impact was gonna have the Knockouts tag team division, or we're doing a tournament. So I was like, well, I'm gonna keep it going for this. And then AEW was doing some stuff too. So I was like, I'm just gonna keep it going. And it's turned into last October made a year. I no longer time WWE matches because it had regressed so much. It was back to the give a divas a chance era. The matches were really short. This is when they were putting Lana through a table 10 weeks in a row. Like, it was, women were walking out of their matches, and like they were starting matches during the commercial breaks. So they weren't even like, it was really like they were really bad about starting matches in the commercial breaks. And so I would have to say, okay, this match started in the commercial break, so this is how long it was on TV. Like, I was having to go, because it's hard to go bell time when you can't hear the bell. And so a lot of people are like, well, why are Dark and Elevation in it? Well, it's because I was trying to get a full picture of what was happening across the 3 promotions. And then so you would see, yes, Dark or Elevation would have 5 women's matches, but they were 2 minutes long. So, which kind of, and on the, like there is the argument that Elevation and Dark are for people to get reps in, obviously.
Right.
So I get that. But then on the other hand, when you're having title matches on these shows and then you're giving them 3 minutes, like, that's like Mercedes Martinez has wrestled, she has defended her ROH title on both Dark and Elevation, and she has wrestled like 5 and 6 minute matches, and which is ridiculous. And then we've seen like, so, and there have been weeks where Impact has 1 match a week like Dynamite does, but they don't get the same hate. I think part of the and I asked this, I was like, Impact doesn't get called out for having 1 match. There will be weeks and weeks of shows where there's 1 women's match and that's it. But a lot of from people who talked about it was saying, but they do backstage segments for women, or they do things where the women can develop their character, they can develop their matches, and they can do more. So even if they are only getting 1 match on TV, that at least the women are still being presented in other ways on the TV show. So, and pretty much everybody has something to do. And, and so I think that's a lot of the reason that the Knockouts have, that a lot of people think they are the best women's division in American wrestling, is because they do get the representation. And they do get the storylines, and they do get the characters, where, AEW struggles. It's always 2 steps forward, 3 steps back with them. And that's why I've continued to do it, because it's become, even though it doesn't, and I've talked to a couple wrestlers who have come to me about it, and they were like, just because you're not getting like a whole bunch of likes on it doesn't mean that people aren't paying attention. He was like, both of them were men, actually, and they have said that people are paying more attention than you realize. And they were like, don't stop doing what you're doing. It does make a difference. It does matter. People are paying attention, whether you think they are or not. So that was nice to have, because sometimes I feel like I'm just tweeting into the void and just posting these times just for the hell of it, and nobody else but my sister is paying attention because she's watching these matches with me. I don't know if I'll start recording WWE or timing their matches again, because I don't watch them full time. I've checked in a couple of weeks just to see what they were doing with the women, because it seemed like they were on the right track. And AEW seemed to respond for 1 week, and then they went right back to the same old shit they always do. So they quit trying after a week, it seemed like. And maybe after All Out, maybe they'll readjust some things. I don't know. It's hard to have faith in what they're doing with the women's division when they never follow through with it. And will we still have All Elite Women? Who knows what that will be? Maybe it'll be an all women's wrestling show. Maybe it's just the fancy version of Hills. I don't know yet.
Right.
But I did decide that I will. I did include the Ring of Honor women's matches that they had on the pay-per-view. And anytime, and when Mercedes, because Mercedes is kind of doing both, but since Ring of Honor will eventually, I guess, be getting TV at some point, I will start factoring them into the picture, the full picture as well, especially since I'm not doing WWE. But so yes, that's the explanation. That's why I still do it, and that's why I'm trying to hold people accountable for when they say these things. And they are. I mean, there are places, and there were times when WWE regressed really bad, and hopefully they're turning things around. AEW has a lot of work to do. That's an argument that I've been arguing since they've been around.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot, even on our show, about know, all the things that they need to.
Yeah. So that is the reason I time the matches, and why I'm still doing it, and why Dark and Elevation are included, because it's to present a full picture. Because it's not, because these women on Dark, I mean, and sometimes it is a thing like where they sent Britt. They did it with Jade too. They sent them to Dark to pad their records to get them in number one contendership spots. There's nothing wrong with it. It's what the TV shows are for. I mean, that's part of, they can use them however they like. But these women are going over there and they're having short matches. And then you have like, Jeff and Paul were talking about how there was a 6-person match to main event Dark, and it was 2.5 minutes. Which is unacceptable. And I know, and I guess part of the reason is because they did the special Elevation that Thursday night to get the match with they got the Madison Rain had her match on there, and they did something else, and then they did the live Rampage afterwards. So I guess part of the reason is because they filmed a bunch of matches at one time. And so and I think on that episode of Dark, all the matches were short, not just the women's, but it just shows, I mean, and I complain all the time. Like, you'll see tweets where I talk about how the YouTube show was an hour and a half, and there were 4 women's matches that totaled 6 minutes of the entire hour and half, So, and then there are reasons. So that's why because I'm trying to make the point that even on YouTube, where they have technically have unlimited time and could do whatever they want, they're still giving women 3-minute matches. And they're giving, and yes, you are building reps and things like that. But then there are women, and I understand some people, they're not familiar, they don't know how to work on camera because they're coming from the indie scene, or maybe they're coming from WWE, who have a very specific way of filming how women wrestle. And you can even say the same thing for Impact. So so there are various reasons. And I do think that, and because I know that there are some comments about how Dark and Elevation don't matter and that they're a waste, and I don't agree with that statement at all. And even Fuego, I actually saw Fuego tweet about it, because he was like, I guess people were like, why are you on Dark? Like, you did all this stuff to get a contract. And he was like, I don't care where I wrestle. Like, I just want to get in the reps. I have an opportunity to wrestle various people that I wouldn't get the opportunity to wrestle.
Yeah.
And they gave, and I still, during the pandemic, when nobody was running, they gave a lot of indie wrestlers a paycheck, and they got them in front of fans that would have never seen them before, and that's led to them getting booked in other places. And so I think it's unfair to say that Dark and Elevation don't matter. And if you don't watch it, that's fine. But
yeah, well, that's your prerogative.
And you don't have to. There's a lot of wrestling out there. And then I know some people were complaining because, but that's where they set up the Sunny. So that is where they set up the Sunny Kiss story of joining Trustbusters. And it was a little odd, and I get it. But on the other hand, for those of us who do watch Dark and Elevation, we deserve storylines too. Like, why can't we have good stuff? Like, we're already watching it. Why don't we get? Why can't we have good stories? Like, they did the storyline with where they did the three matches with Joey Janela and Sunny Kiss last year when they broke them up. Like, we got those matches, and we got the they did a thing with Diamante and Big Swole. Where they had a couple of matches, and it ended up with the Three Strikes match. Was the first time that had happened in AEW history, and it was the first time that it involved women, and so it was a big deal. And so we should get rewarded for this too. Like, we should get good stories, and sometimes they are just matches in the background while I'm doing other things, but that doesn't mean that they're not important, that they don't serve purposes. So I just wish they got a lot more respect than they do.
And if you don't like it, that's fine. You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but don't say that it's a waste of time, because it's not. You're training. You're getting and like you see, look at Kylan King. Like, Kylan King had a title match last week against Toni Storm. She's wrestling again. Not a title match. I'm sorry. It was I guess it was just basically a match to get because Tony was the number one contender. But she's wrestling again this week.'s wrestling Britt Baker, and Kylan is somebody who wrestled on Dark and Elevation a lot during the pandemic period. She was featured a lot, and now she has gone on. She's been off there for a little bit. She did wrestle on Empower because there was some talk about that pay-per-view and not having good enough women or whatever kind of bullshit they want to say about why they're not running Empower this year. But Kylan King was on Empower. She has won a couple of women's titles in different promotions. She's wrestled, for people who don't watch the Sammy Guevara blog, they were doing a thing for a while with the Nightmare Factory when Cody wasn't on, when he left BTE, he was on Sammy's blog for a while. And so they did the Nightmare Factory Friend Olympics. It was Kylan was the only woman, but it was her, and it was Fuego, and Ricky Starks, I think, was on it, and who else am I forgetting? Alan Angels. I think there was one more, but they did these really good. They did a lot of stuff, but Kylan would win often. Kylan was very good, and she would win the challenges, and it was really funny. And so she definitely earned a lot of respect, I think, from fans who were watching that as well. And so I'm glad to see her getting these spots. So that, or in Layla, look at Layla Gray. Like, she's somebody who's now sort of with the baddies. She's helping them out, and she spent a lot of time on Dark and Elevation too. And now she's getting, when you look at Red Velvet, she spent a lot of time on those shows as well. A lot of Dark Order has been on Dark and Elevation. Like, they were building these characters and building these storylines. That's where the Acclaimed was at. That's where the Gun Club has been. Like, so and a lot of Nightmare Factory stuff happens over there too. So, but there are a lot of things that are happening over there. So just because you aren't seeing them on Dynamite and Rampage doesn't mean they're happening elsewhere, and it doesn't mean that they aren't important and that they aren't building good things over there. I mean, sometimes, and I mean, it was random. They randomly have Zach Clayton challenge Hook, who is somebody who's been on Dark. He wasn't there for a while, and then he was actually with Sunny Kiss in a match against the Trustbusters, and then Zach challenges Hook and got decimated in 30 seconds. But
I mean, you gotta get Hook on the TV, man.
Right? Yeah. I mean, his entrance was longer than the match, but yeah.
He's such a just giant star. You've just got to figure out a way to get him out there.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess he should be beating somebody like Zach Clayton in 30 seconds. I mean, so yeah, but I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, so that's my soapbox for the day about Dark and Elevation. It's okay that you don't watch, but don't write off what they do just because you don't watch it. That's my point. So yeah, but in the end, yes, Jeff, I do accept your apology, which was the whole point of that. Before I got off in that sad rant, but I feel like
I think it's important that you gave people some context, at least from For those of you who missed out entirely, Jeff actually apologized.
He
for
did, and I appreciate that. That was
on.
That was very nice of him.
He was a big enough man to own it and
yes.
say something, and that's so
and I appreciate.
Of course, we love the Dynamite show. And,
we do. They're good guys over there.
I had a good laugh at that because in my heart I knew that you would forgive him, but I definitely was happy that you made him stew on it a little bit because I'm a little bit. Hey, I mean, look at the group. I mean, that's all right. There's plenty of sadists in this group, so all y'all can see.
Yeah, and there are other people who time matches for their own reasons, and I don't know what their reasons are, but those are mine. It was because it started out as an article thing, and it's the eventual plan. I just have to get through all of it and go back through all my documentation is to do a bigger piece on everything that happened in that year period. But there's a lot of matches that happened, and it's a lot of work, and I've got to find the time to do it. And so that's the eventual goal, is to get a bigger picture of everything in that, especially in that 1 year period where WWE is included. And then, it'll be everything after that's different. So from October 2021 on, there is no WWE women's match times at all. So there is that year period that included all three. And so I will eventually get around, hopefully, to doing it would be
fun to hear you kind of put it all together and be like, what do you feel like not like what do you think you accomplished, but like what did you learn from everything that you did? And and I mean, it's a good piece, and I gotta say is like, for as much as everybody wants to whether you're for it or against it, or I mean, most people aren't like criticizing you for it, but I do think that it's interesting that it is something that you made relevant to a new group of people by just being like, hey, when we started hanging out here and we were like, this Sam's doing this thing, a lot of people on a lot of the other shows on the network talk about it, because the idea is that it is something that they can refer to data-wise. For them also to be like, maybe we should be thinking about this. Like, maybe it does matter. Maybe when there is a bunch of bullcrap going on, maybe there should be a women's match here.
Yeah. And I've had a couple of people who've told me that they're writers for other things, and they're like, I refer to your timeline to double check like women's time. So for the piece that I'm working on,
that's awesome.
And then I've had some people say, like, I have had people who are like, why are you doing this? It's always men who tell me it doesn't, and they are the ones who are it's people who don't follow me. It's always men who are like, women's wrestling doesn't matter, you're wasting your time, you're not proving anything. It's general, and I've gotten to the point where
what do you care?
I've gotten to the point where I just don't respond. It's not worth
it's like, if it doesn't matter, then
why are you taking the time
about it?
And so I've gotten to the point where I don't respond to them, because it turns into, because they just want attention. And so it's gotten to the point where I don't. There are a few in the beginning I would respond, but now there was one guy who was just being ridiculous with like quote tweets and stuff. And so I just blocked him, because I was just like, I don't have the time and the energy. Go troll somebody else. You're not getting,
go spend your toxic time on Facebook or on Twitter somewhere else.
Right, exactly.
Keep it off my timeline.
Right, yes.
I'm just doing an experiment. If you're so scared about it, maybe I'm right.
Could be. That could be possible, but
or at least maybe my point is relevant. Like, which I think is bigger. I think is that the point is that like I and that's what I took more than anything from that is that it's a viably relevant point, and I just thought it was very cool that I got to enjoy the that from the sidelines, because since they mentioned it on their show, they are going to be joining us for our recap after All Out, and just to make it official, Paul. When I say hanging out, I actually did mean that we would be recapping the show. Here, we keep it light here so we hang out because it's enjoyable. But next time we'll ask you to join us for a play-by-play analysis of the All Out pay-per-view, the AEW All Out pay-per-view from September 5th in Hoffman Estates, Chicago. So
none of us will be in Chicago.
Grandpa Des needs, you know what it is? It's that he needs a more official invitation.
Okay. Well, next time we'll ask him, or we'll send
it by carrier pigeon, and we'll get a calligrapher and
make sure we stamp it. Put pretty ribbon. We'll put a fancy ribbon on it.
Yeah. We'll send an owl. There's a totally like separate reference entirely.
Yes, but will. We'll make sure it's more professional next time.
Yeah, sorry about
that. More professional than, hey, you want to come be on our show?
Sorry, we are what we are, and you all love us for it, so shut up. Everybody wants our opinion on everything. We're going to have to weigh in on this Punk situation because y'all want to hear what we have to say.
I'm so tired of the situation already, but we will talk about it.
We will talk about it. We are getting to it. We have other things first.
Do you want to talk about this one first, or the person who's on the picture of our show this week, who is getting he's getting
Don Callis came back.
Yes, Don Callis and Michael Nakazawa.
I do like that Don Callis is back a little. I'm not gonna lie. I love me
people.
Some Don
I know
Callis.
People were hating, and I assumed he'd be back.
I love hating Don Callis more than anything.
I do agree with the sentiment that they do need to take JR and Don Callis off of commentary together, because they don't know how. It's like listening to Jericho. They don't know when to shut up. And
Jericho did an okay job this week. I appreciated that. Somebody must have, either they're watching all of our shows on the Fight Game Media Network, because we a few shows do mention this pretty regularly.
Yeah, and I will say, hopefully, I was hoping, because I saw something the other day saying Jericho's going on tour with Fozzy, but it would not affect his Dynamite time. And I scanned over the schedule, and it looks like Fozzy will not do shows on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So I was like, oh, maybe he won't be on Rampage. And then Nikki was like, no, they were. And I was like, oh no, I remember they record Rampage after Dynamite. Damn it.
Only the
She's like, so only the live episodes, because he does play on Fridays. I was like, damn it. I thought I got myself a little sliver of hope that he would not be on Rampage, and they'd put Eddie Kingston back on Rampage commentary, but it doesn't.
It looks like they maybe someone told him to tone it down a little bit this week.
No, he was a lot more tolerable this week.
He was much more like specific when he was talking.
Yeah, it was much better for him. I was like, see, if you would do this, then I would not complain as much.
Exactly. But in JR's case, unfortunately, Jim Ross knows more about wrestling than anyone will know, and it's all of these things. But it is so. I'm not just embarrassed for him. It's upsetting to me that it's like, guys, it's 20. We're pumpkin spice season away from 2023 here at this point, okay? Right. You have got to do something about Jim Ross's. It's time. I'm really sorry. Everybody. Well,
and it seemed like
maybe they had to hang him up sooner or later.
Yeah, and they had him it seemed like maybe they were kind of doing some stuff because, they were bringing him out at like 9 p.m. and just having him come that hour, and then he was doing some Rampage stuff, but they've got to figure out something where they keep Jim Ross and Don Callis away from each other off of commentary, because they take away from the match. I'm like, this is Kenny Omega's freaking return after 277 days, and you're going to make it distracting. You're going to make it about yourselves. And because even the line, it did make me laugh when they were coming out and they were like, the bad news is Don Callis is here. I did laugh at that. Okay, however, you're still taking away from Kenny's moment. Just shut up a minute. Just let the fans enjoy. We all knew it was going to be Kenny. even without watching BTE, I mean, a lot of us watch BTE, so we knew it. But I mean, we kind of expected, because the whole thing was, when Kenny Omega is ready to return, we will bring the trios titles. Okay, well, they announced the trios title, so we all assumed it was coming sooner rather than later. And so I just, that really kind of that bothered me, because that felt like, I mean, so Kenny's already, so before he's getting overshadowed by JR and Don Callis a little bit on commentary, and now he's getting completely overshadowed by the Punk stuff, which it's not his fault. It's not their fault that that information came out when it did either, but the timing just sucked. But so it's taking away from Kenny Omega, which is why I wanted to have his picture on the thing, because it's important that Kenny Omega is back and we should be talking about it.
And Justin Roberts' introduction,
fantastic.
Freaking, I mean, his favorite candy bar is a Charleston Chew. It's
yeah, and that he sometimes that he uses the airport in North Carolina. I wondered how they were still. I was hoping they were still going to fit the North Carolina stuff in there, and that I loved it. That was a great way to get it in there. And so it sounds like Kenny, he's I guess still technically belt collector Kenny, where he is still a heel. The Bucks are heels now anyway, and so I guess they're still sticking with, which heel elite's more fun. They're more fun when they're heels.
Yeah, so. I mean, I've been enjoying it, so it was fine. I thought his outfit his ring gear that he came out in was kind of freaking cool.
And I love the trench coat.
But he's still dark Kenny.
Yeah, he was still like a little bit of Bullet Club Kenny. Like he had I mean, he had like the darker hair too. The hair was a little bit darker, and he had the dark trench coat on, and so it was kind of like, I'm glad they cut that weird thing out of the beginning of his intro video where he's like just standing around. Like glad they cut that out of there. His intro video is a little bit better. And so, and I don't think I know some people had an issue with Nakazawa being out there, but I'm like, that's one of his best friends. That's not, and they were doing stuff like that with Belt Collector Kenny. And I'm not surprised that Don Callis is back. I know some people think that he takes away, but I don't think so. I think he adds to it. And I think, and for that Kenny, for that character, like I think Don Callis makes sense. So I mean, maybe they'll get to a point where he's not out there every week, or maybe it's a little more sporadic and things like that. But I mean, for his first appearance back, I'm not surprised that they had Don Callis involved.
Yeah, he just should have probably been a little.
Yes,
I'm with you on
Agreed.
Agreed. I think that is something that is ongoing with the table issues. I don't think that's specific. That was unfortunate that it went on during that time frame.
Yeah, agreed. And so I thought it was, I thought Kenny, and I like the story that he's telling of where he's kind of selling the injuries, and is he 100%? And it goes back for if you don't watch BTE, there was a phone call, Matt was watching, from what I heard, because I didn't realize it at the time until somebody tweeted it the next day. They are so good at Easter eggs and things like that. So apparently Matt was watching Gone with the Wind, and
that's hilarious.
Yeah, and they explained that it was the scene where I think it was Scarlett realizes that she's not in love with Ashley, that she is in love with Rhett. And so I guess it was kind of like a Hangman Omega type thing, maybe is what they were getting at. And so Matt's phone rings, and he answers it, and he's talking, and he's like, are you sure?
Are you sure?
Are you ready? Are you ready to go? Do you think you can do this? And so they're kind of playing on the fact that maybe Kenny's not 100% yet, but he wants to help, he wants to help his friends. Red Dragon has turned on him. Adam Cole turned on him. Hangman has decided that he wants to be with the Dark Order and be in their corner. So now they're kind of the ones that don't have any friends. And so he feels like he has to come back to be with his friends, whether he's cleared or not. Like, it didn't matter. And so that kind of like that story. And they were talking about how Okada did something similar where when he was acting like he wasn't really ready, and then we see, like, as he goes along, that he built up to that, and it sounds like they're doing that. And somebody was saying that they wonder if, as we go along, if Kenny will start to lose like parts of his armor, because he's wearing the shirt. Kenny does not wrestle in a shirt, and you could see one time his shirt came up and it looked like maybe he had like a back brace on or something like that, like he had. So it looked like, so it's little things like that, and so it sounds like Kenny is probably, because Kenny's had a lot of time to think about what he wanted to do when he came back and how he wanted to tell the story and how he wants his character to be. And Kenny has said, like, he doesn't think he will ever be 100%. He will be lucky if he's 80%, just because, as we've talked about, in wrestling, there's nobody who is 100% ever.
Yeah.
So it's just not possible. And so I think Kenny is to the point where he is comfortable wrestling, the way that he is. He's had some time off. He's had a couple of surgeries. He's done some other types of treatments. And so I think he knows what his body can do and what it can't do. And, he may be on the later end of his in-ring career just because of his injuries.
He admitted that he knew that. When he spoke, when he interviewed with Garrett and Dave,
right,
he made
that's right.
that exact point about. I mean, I don't like. He's not dumb. He knows.
Yeah.
The deal.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that? I take that to mean that you believe that him playing the I can't do this to Nick and Matt, and I can't make them, because he has since then said things like, I'm not gonna burden them with this, and I'm just not ready. So you still expect that he'll be wrestling in that spot?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That's where I'm going with that. I'm hoping, hopefully I'm not playing myself, just like hoping for the best, but I kind of think that's where he's going. I think that's the story he's telling here, I think.
Okay, interesting.
But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, especially because, like, you do go back to Best Friends and Orange Cassidy, who have been one of the only, like, true trios for a while, and they've never turned on each other. They've not had this infighting stuff. Unless you count when Trent didn't like Wheeler Yuta. But they didn't really have, like, they haven't had the turmoil and stuff like that. And they are really, like, you saw it, they pull out the reason, because I didn't watch Chikara, but I did see that somebody had a tweet the other night that showed the move's called the Anthill, and they did it in Chikara, and then they did it Friday night on Rampage, and Jericho kept saying, what was it? I've never seen anything like that before. Like, that's really cool. And so and he kept, like, hyping it up, like I think he really had never seen it before. And so I thought that was really cool. And so I kind of think that maybe it does come down to Best Friends, and, like, maybe the true friends versus the Elite. But you've got House of Black, who have been a really exceptional trio since they've been there, and so they could go different ways with it. But it seems like, for being honest, the Elite will probably win. If they were waiting on Kenny,
if they're going to bring him back, they need to.
If you're waiting on Kenny to return to introduce the titles, that tells me it's because you want Kenny to have that title. The Bucks don't have the tag team titles. They're out of the tag team scene for the most part. It seems like we'll eventually get Bucks versus FTR, but it seems like that's kind of a ways away. That's like something down the road. And it just I guess as a fan, it just feels right that it's the Elite. I would not be mad if Best Friends and Orange Cassidy won, because I love them. And they're fantastic. And I do hope that they eventually get those titles, but I kind of see the Elite being the first ones to get it, especially if you've been waiting on Kenny to come back. And it kind of tells that story of Kenny, like, what can he do and can he be strong? And so I don't know if we get that a reveal at All Out that he's completely I guess back or whatever, or if they extend that a little longer with Kenny not being 100%, but I think maybe that's what the plan is. Maybe it is at All Out. We'll see. And then, because he also did the Terminator, where he went down and he was hitting the mat, and then he didn't hit
the Terminator.
The Terminator. That was right. Okay, so I was right, and I was like, wait, am I saying that right? He didn't hit one. He didn't hit the One Wing Angel either, and so, like, they are kind of playing like he's not. He did hit I think he did hit a V trigger. I know he did the Snapdragon. I think he did a V trigger as well. And so he's doing those kind of moves, but he's obviously saving the One Winged Angel and the Terminator for All Out. at least, if not longer than that. And then we had kind of the weird thing at the end of the show where we thought Roosh went into business for himself, maybe, and they like had the weird thing with Dragon Lee, and like I'm like, are they taking away from Kenny's moment? Like, because they cut that ending was so weird.
Yeah, like, I think that the people that said that they were overtime.
Yeah, I think that's what that. Yeah, I think they were overtime because I think that they could have cut. Yeah, they could. Like, we didn't need, because is that the night that they turned on Billy Gunn? That happened on Dynamite, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Like, that could have been a Rampage segment. I think I remembered. I think I tweeted that this could have been a Rampage segment, and so I thought, because they kept doing dumb stuff like that, and I thought the women were going to get 5 minutes, and they got 7. I think. Like 7.5. So they got a little bit more than I expected, but they kept cutting into it. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And then, like you said, it sounds like they ran out of time with the end stuff, and they kind of showed it on Rampage. And I know Dragon Lee has tweeted and said that he's not part of that faction anymore. And then Roosh said that he was proud of something about he was proud of him. But basically he's not heel enough to be with them. I guess he's too much of a baby face was kind of what he was getting at. So it was just very awkward the way that happened. And so, but I hope they sign Dragon Lee. I would love to see him, but I don't know.
Please.
I don't know what his contract status is with PMLL. I don't know how that, and I know it gets kind of weird with like the politics down in Mexico with their wrestling and things like that. So
just like up here.
So I guess that's a good segue into the next thing. So, unless you've been under a rock, there have been some reports about the situation. I guess we'll back up a little bit, because on Wednesday night when CM Punk came out, before he addressed Mox, he referenced Hangman Page, which was very odd. It didn't fit in with the whole, like, especially when you look at the opening segment as a whole, it didn't fit in. And so obviously people were questioning that. There was a report that came out that said that the first report actually came out, and then they had to go back and edit it because they had incorrect information. But the first report that came out was saying that Punk and Hangman do have some heat. They have some issues because of something that Adam Page said on TV about Colt Cabana. And then, but originally the report that came out from Select was saying that they got the dates wrong. Like, they were saying that he said it when Punk was not there, which is incorrect. He said it to Punk's face.
It was in a promo.
Yeah, it was in a promo to Punk's face. So he didn't like. So
and it was, if I remembered when they started talking about it, I'm like, this is the promo where he said that nobody I remember this promo because this was a promo where he was telling him that like people in the back didn't respect him.
Right. And that he was protecting. And then that's where Hangman said he was protecting AEW from CM Punk. Because that was weird, because in that timeline, that was also like, I think fans were having a hard time with Hangman because they weren't really sure, I guess, like what his motive was, obviously, other than holding on to his title. And so people were like, so then they were like, oh, the protect AEW thing. Okay, well then I guess this is his like motivation or whatever. But then because then they had made some comment that said that he said he said something about Colt Cabana.
He made a reference to the workers' lawsuit as well.
Yeah, and so, but there was a workers' right thing, and Hangman did say that when Punk was not there. Punk was off filming. I think that's when he was filming Hills 2. So that was the only week. But when he did talk about Colt Cabana, like where it was more obvious that's what he was talking to, he said it directly to CM Punk's face. So there was that kind of discrepancy.
Which they've had go on in AEW, but it would seem, given what's gone on, that was not something they cleared with each other.
Right.
A lot of times when you see that happening, and the thing is, they have had they tell you even right after we had a conversation. Like the stuff with Jack Perry where he referenced his dad.
Right.
Is a good example.
Well, and then I was thinking about even like the stuff with MJF and Brian Pillman Jr.
Yep.
With his
they
family.
had all talked about that.
Right, stuff. Exactly. And so, and they were saying, so there was questions whether Hangman was in the building from reports that have come out yet afterwards. Yes, he was in the building when that happened. he was not scheduled, I guess, to be on TV that night. Or so that was kind of, so there was that kind of an issue. There was some reporting saying that one of the things that, because when I first read the report, I was like, okay, I'm kind of not surprised because CM Punk has had some issues before backstage before, and you know, he has a reputation for sometimes being an asshole, so like that I wasn't, so at first when I first read it I kind of was like, well, I guess I'm not surprised that this is happening, but then I went back and read it and I was like, something's not right, something is not adding up here, and I was like, so I reread it and it was saying that CM Punk went to the higher ups and then came out of it and said that he basically ensured that he was gonna win the title, but that timeline doesn't make sense, because going into this feud, we all knew CM Punk was going to beat Hangman Page, because that was the whole reason they were doing this feud. We knew, because, and most people, before obviously all the MJF stuff happened, the thought for most fans was Hangman is going to lose to CM Punk. CM Punk will drop the title to MJF, probably at All Out in Chicago, because that will be the bigger reaction, is to have MJF beat Punk in his hometown. Like that would be huge for MJF. Like that, it's huge for the story they've told. He gets his win back, that type of thing. So and another thing I want to point out is AEW has known who their first 4 champions were going to be. They probably know who the next 4 will be. MJF not being there probably threw some of that off, unless that's, because obviously there are theories that there's storyline wise. So now there's these
work.
Right, yeah. If this is, and maybe that's what some people are saying. Is this entire thing work? Like, is this stuff with CM Punk, that information coming out now? Is this a work to bring MJF back in? But so regardless, if we move away from the work for just a second, like CM Punk getting injured was not part of their plans, clearly.
Yeah, right.
And so that throws things off, because he was champion for 5 days. He has not defended his title yet. And so we knew whoever the interim champion would be a temporary champion, hence the term interim. We figured it was going to be about a 3-month thing. So like that, so it felt really weird when that original report said that it was like, well, sources say he said that he wasn't going to lose. Well, I don't think he was ever going to lose. So I don't understand. I can see going to the higher ups and being like, you know, I'm uncomfortable with the Colt Cabana stuff like that. I don't really like that he's doing that. Like, I can see maybe going to them and be like, can we kind of back off of this stuff, or who knows what was set up there. But the idea that CM Punk went in there and was like, I'm not dropping, or I'm not losing, like I'm not jobbing. And that was another thing. I was talking to somebody else. They were like, even though CM Punk has had issues with creative and other companies before, he never complained about jobbing to people. Like if they wanted him to lose to somebody, he would do it. And that seems a kind of out of character that he would say that not that he's playing politics, but just some of the things just don't add up. And then to say that Hangman Page would go into business for himself with the Colt Cabana stuff, I don't know. I mean, I've watched Hangman Page for a long time. I watched him locally. I don't know him. I've talked to him a few times, but I don't know him. I feel pretty confident to say that Hangman Page is not a person who is going to go into business for himself. Is he a person who will stand up for his friend? Absolutely. And he said it right to Punk's face on national TV. So, I mean, that kind of tells you the type of person that Hangman Page is. It just feels like something feels off, and I don't know exactly. Like, so those things don't add up a little bit to me. When I sent it to some friends, like when I sent them the report, one of their first responses was, "This is a work." He's basically said that Sean Ross Sapp is getting worked, is how they took it. He was like, none of this makes sense. Why this doesn't make sense. And then I had talked to some other people, and like as we kind of were digesting it and reading it, we were just picking things out like, this doesn't make sense. And then of course people were aggregated, and so they had to go back. Fightful had to go back and release a statement, or like edit it and say, so they edited the part about the Colt Cabana promos. And then they also edited the fact they were like, we never said that he threatened to quit. So anybody who's aggregating this information and is saying CM Punk threatened to quit, we never said that.
Yeah.
We just said there was some concern about whether he was going to come out or not, but they never, quitting was not a word that we used. Like, that's not something we said. And then they had to go back, and there was something else. I've got it. Hang on, I've got it here. Hang on one second, and I will tell you what they said. Oh, it was the thing about Hangman, about whether he knew it was coming, and no staff was aware. And they said they were told that Hangman was supposedly unaware as well. And so that they edited to clarify, because basically they knew it was clickbait. That they knew they could say CM Punk threatened to quit and it would make people click. And that's exactly what happened. And then you have people with their tweets who are just like, clearly, I mean, they're just saying, oh, well, CM Punk is being CM Punk, or CM Punk is not really there to help the younger guys, and all, this, and there's all kinds of things, but just something in this story has not added up. And then their reports were coming out a couple days later where I guess some other people were confirming, yes, there is some kind of issues. There is a little bit of heat between the two of them. And then somebody said, but they're not, at this point, they're not above putting it in. A source has claimed that they can see this being worked into a TV style shoot, kind of like they did with MJF. And so it's hard to know what to believe exactly, because now, and then people have said, now MJF's name has been brought back into this, and they were like, is MJF gonna, because they moved CM Punk and Jon Moxley to this week, which was really weird. And that's why I thought, okay, well, maybe they're gonna do something, because obviously that's the main event match. That's the match we all assumed was gonna headline All Out. So if that's not it, then maybe they do Will Ospreay, because I was trying to think, like, what match do you put in that position? Well, now people think it's MJF. People think MJF is coming back. They think he's going to cost CM Punk the title, or maybe he helps CM Punk get the title on Wednesday and then immediately demands his shot. I mean, people obviously are speculating and going crazy because we're wrestling fans and that's what we do. So,
whereas I just think that he's going to drop the belt to Moxley on Wednesday so he can win it back in Chicago and have a hero's victory, because he's pissed off about all the stuff that's gone on, and he is kind of, I mean, listen, I mean, whether you agree or not, like, he did sue his best friend. That was a big mess. If you go back and actually, like, please go, like, look up, do your own due diligence on the CM Punk.
There was some things that Colt Cabana apparently did as well with the lawsuit too. So
there's, nothing about that situation was pretty, and I'm not defending him, although
some people want to romanticize one person and not the other, when there was some things going. There's some things that were going on both sides, and I don't think it's fair to. I mean, sure, there are definitely some things that Punk has done, and of course, I'm a huge fan of his. I'm a huge fan of Jon Moxley. I'm a huge fan of Hangman Page, and so I'm like, oh, great. Fantastic.
Well, and I mean, we're all talking about it, and we're all having to weigh in on it. So who's the real winner here?
Right. AEW. And so that's why some people are of the mind that this entire thing is a work, because they are getting fans to talk about it. They're getting us to talk about it. On Thursday, there were more people talking about this than they were about NXT UK. Basically folding into NXT Europe, and all these people who got cut. Maybe. People are talking about that. People are talking about this more than they're talking about Kenny Omega coming back. And this
Which should honestly be the biggest story in wrestling, because people waited for it. I mean, I have people on my timeline who have been keeping count of those days. And Justin Roberts said 274. It's like, I know that because there's at least a half dozen people on my that are having tons.
And then, like, there's somebody now who I've seen her throughout Kenny's time away, where they've done the, now she's done like day 2 of Kenny Omega being back. Like, so she's kind of earned it. And so that kind of thing. And like, I have a friend who would DM me, and he was like, have you heard anything about Kenny Omega? And so if I would come across any information, like, do you want to know? And he would be like, yes, please send it to me. And then like, he wasn't really sure if he was coming back. And I was like, do you want me to tell you that this is why I think he's coming back? And so he was, it was funny. He is not a night owl. And so he was struggling. He was mad that they opened with CM Punk because he's like, this isn't Kenny Omega. I was like, but of course not, because the ratings. Kenny Omega's coming at the end.
You gotta wait. You gotta wait for the good stuff. They keep the good stuff for the end or the intermission.
Yeah. So I mean, and then maybe it is a shoot. Maybe there are some real life, and that's the kind of the thing that happens with wrestling. You get a lot of the backstage things, and some of the best on TV things end up being stuff that are a little. I mean, that's why the MJF stuff, that last promo he cut where he was just let it all out. He was saying all of these things, and maybe some of it wasn't working. Some of it is real life. And that's why and then he's gone and he's off TV. But it's interesting because last week or 2 weeks ago, Select put out a report saying that nobody had heard from MJF, or at least would admit that they had talked to him. They said he stayed in LA a little bit after Double or Nothing. It sounds like maybe he was doing some acting things, and then he did.
Frankly, I think that this is the weirdest way to ask for some time off ever.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. And then I think he filmed some stuff for some. They were saying that was it Impossible Jokers that he filmed Improbable.
Joker.
Yeah, I knew that didn't sound right. I knew that didn't. I was like, wait, that's not it.
I only know that because it's on before my morning news. So I
there
catch
you go. Okay.
ass end of it. It's a weird, yeah.
Yeah, and so but they did tie in with AEW already. So they were saying, is MJF filming something because he's coming back to AEW, or is this something completely separate from that? And then right after that, so that report came out like on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. That Friday was the live Rampage, and there was a sign that said "Pay MJF." Nobody has been having MJF signs for months, and then now we have two prominent signs talking about paying MJF for the last couple of weeks. And so it just, maybe it's nothing, maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's not at all. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we've been played this whole time. Maybe. But the only thing is, like, I think another thing that kind of is interesting with the CM Punk stuff is he comes back. He clearly is going to come back for the title. He had a 5-day title reign, but then all of a sudden he's not going to come. Then now he's threatening to not come out on TV. Just the timing seems weird. And I know politics are weird and politics change things, and maybe something happened.
I think to me there is something going on backstage.
I do think there's some backstage.
I think there's some actual legitimate, whatever you want to say about it, whether it's that people don't like that he got to come in and be treated this way after a lot of people. I know there was some talk about, people feeling like they had been there the whole time, and then this guy comes in and he gets treated like royalty and they're getting pushed aside. And there's clearly, I think, to me,
that which I can see that argument, and I'm not saying that I don't want to invalidate
viable.
The argument.
I mean,
but you can make that argument for Bryan Danielson and Adam Cole, and all these people being brought in too. So you could make that argument. But like I'm saying, I'm not invalidating these people and they're being upset. I'm not trying to do that at all. But I'm just saying that you could make that. Then again, on the other hand, CM Punk
maybe that was the breaking point for people. Maybe Punk was the last straw for some people.
Could have been. Yeah.
Maybe MJF thought that he should have been the one to win that title and not CM Punk, and that they just gave it to him without him earning it because ratings.
He did earn it. He did go. They did do it properly. Like, they didn't just. He went through, like, he wrestled Darby. He went through and he had these feuds and he worked his way up the rankings just like everybody else. So, but in the backstage,
maybe they're going to come out on Wednesday or maybe not this coming up Wednesday, but the go home Wednesday, and be like, "Ha ha! You've all been played. Yeah. Here's an awesome card. You're all going to buy it."
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, because I thought of it. So we were talking about the stuff with MJF. So I was like, okay, well, maybe MJF is coming back. Was this the plan all along? I don't know, because they can't.
Again, and maybe the CM Punk
Punk's injury
is part of it.
I mean, I think CM Punk's injury is legit. Like,
I think all the injuries are legit, right? And I think that it changed
what they were planning to. Yeah.
And so they had to put it,
and so they put the title on Jon Moxley because he didn't have a chance to when he was champion. It was without fans. Yeah, and so they put it back on So they put it on Jon Moxley with the knowing he was going to lose in 3 months when CM Punk came back that. Yeah, so
he has been kind of saying a lot of people, FYI, I think that is what he's been saying, which is actually F your interim title is actually what Moxley has been apparently meaning. And he's been saying that the whole time. He's been burying the interim title.
Right.
Almost the entire time he's had it.
Right. And then maybe that's why it was the setup for whatever is coming. I don't know. And then again, are we, because they are, and it sounds like maybe because there are backstage issues, they've decided they're going to bring it into TV. But then you kind of go back to the Cody stuff and why Cody left and but
that's also the perfect thing to you could literally you're putting that and you're using that as your anchor to make up all these other stories because you do you now have someone who legitimately left. So every time you make these threats, people are going to legitimately be like, is he really leaving? We've done that with MJF the entire time. The entire time he's been MIA, probably just he needed tights. This is what I said to Bob the other day. I was like, I think that, because he was like, do you really think this? And do you really think that? And I was like, you know what I really think? I really think that he's done a huge angle and he did 2 huge angles in a row and he did some dog collar matches. And I think that he wanted some time off and there was crap going on and they turned it into a thing. I was like, this is a hell of a way to ask for some time off. Probably one of his family members wasn't feeling well and he wanted to be home helping them, or he just needed some time back.
Right.
In the old Long Island where it's quiet and he can sit in the backyard, no one has a clue.
Right. Well, and then he also there was legitimate interest from WWE in him. So maybe he was and that's a thing that I've talked about a few times. Was that a Vince thing just because that's another person besides Cody that we can lure away from AEW. But then I was like, does Triple H even have any interest in MJF? Would he even?
There's literal laws against contract tampering.
And that was the thing.
You can't just. I can't just call up another company like that and start telling I'm interested in you and you can't do that. You have to reach out to the owner.
And then that's the thing about the report that came out last week where somebody in WWE's talent relations contacted somebody with AEW and they went through the wrestler had them go through their management or whatever, but they went to AEW and said, hey, WWE reached out to me and asked if I was happy here and asked if I was under contract.
Tampering. It's considered tampering.
But they were saying that somebody that I write with who also just got her law degree. She was saying
she would know more.
She was saying just asking as far as if they said are you under contract or when is your contract up? We are interested in you. That's one thing. But then it's obviously a very different thing for jump ship and come over here now and we'll pay you more money,
which is just illegal.
Right. So she was like, those are clearly, so it depends on what language was used and what was said for it to be contract tampering or just hey, are you happy there? When your contract is up, we want you type of thing. And apparently that person says, I'm happy where I'm at. So people have obviously been trying to figure out who that person is. I have a guess. I don't know if I am correct on who that person is, but I had one person come to mind immediately. A lot of people assumed it was Adam Cole.
You want to share? You're going to keep
I will. No, I can share. Some people understandably thought it was Adam Cole. I think it was Swerve because they brought back Hit Row.
Okay. That's
my guess is Swerve. I don't know. I mean, of course, it could have been. And I've seen some people say Toni Storm, which I didn't think of initially. But and some people thought it was Athena because she just went over there. But Swerve is my guess just because they just brought back Hit Rope. They brought back everybody, but Swerve. Swerve is clearly a champion, so it seems happy. And then I think somebody else, maybe it was on the Dynamite show that I heard this, that they were wondering if it was William Regal.
Oh, that's especially if they're going to do a Europe thing.
Yeah.
Although I don't think that to me seems unlikely. If you're gonna do an NXT Europe, why did you just lay off like all the people that were in NXT UK? Because
some people are wondering if it's opening, because you know how ROH did. ROH laid off a bunch of people, and that was clearly they didn't know AEW at the time was gonna end up that Tony Khan was gonna purchase them, but they did let people out of their contract so that they could go wrestle on the indies. But that does also not seem like things that WWE does. So,
yeah.
And as I had read somewhere, I think apparently Flash Morgan Webster had just re-signed a contract
with Progress.
With WWE, with NXT UK, and then they let him go, and so they let Mandrews go, and then some people have wondered. I know there's been the discussion too. Was it people who didn't want to wrestle in America, or who didn't want to move to America to wrestle? Because for a while that was Walter's thing. Like he didn't want to move to America, and so he would not wrestle here. And then obviously things changed. So. But yeah, it just was really weird. So then, but I was like, well, William Regal would make sense because I think they were asking if he was actually under contract or if it was like a pay per appearance basis type thing. So I guess
because he could get them everyone.
Right. Yeah.
It's no joke. He does literally know everyone.
Yeah, he really does.
I wish
he's like a human Rolodex.
He may have written a book. I need to look. But if he hasn't, I wish he would, because that would be an absolutely fascinating.
He could
history.
Probably write he probably has enough knowledge to write 15 books. All the things.
It would be amazing to hear just the history of his experience.
Yeah. Oh, just for sure.
I mean, and he more of the stuff that he was doing on the Jericho podcast, where he was talking about, interacting with, because he is from all these other old guys that are still in the business doing this old and talking about these old guys. William Regal is the oldest old guy. Like he goes, he pretty much predates all of you. They were literally doing the thing with the ringer and getting the people in the crowd in the ring.
Yeah,
where he beats the crap out of them. Like that's old school. That's way old. So it would be
I think he would make
fascinating to hear what he had to say about the world of it. But if that guy with that level of going back that far can be like, let's help young talent and let's keep the business going, like that's all these other people can just kind of stuff it.
Yeah.
Because
Agreed.
William Regal's existence trumps your entire argument.
Right.
Regal. At this point, when it comes to these people like Jim Cornette and all these killing the business types, if it happens across my whatever, because I don't bother. It's stupid. I won't elevate it. I won't participate in it.
Me either.
But if that attitude stumbles across me, it's like I'm just gonna be like, I William Regal your argument and walk away.
There you go. That's the perfect argument. They can't say anything back to that.
He's teaching young people.
That is the end of the argument. There's no coming back.
There's no one left. Everybody else is gone.
Take your L and go on.
Go. Yep. You've lost now. William Regal 1, you 0.
Yes. Don't even try. But I don't know where things are going. We're talking about it. It's probably some real stuff, some TV stuff. I do think some things have been left out that we don't know about. I feel something just feels very off with this report. I don't know. I don't know exactly what to believe, which I guess is kind of the point. But it just feels like, it just feels very, I don't know. Something's off. something. And I can see this becoming a TV thing because so many people are talking about it. Even if that was not the intent in the beginning, I think they're like, well, might as well.
Well, look at how much play we're getting now.
Yeah.
Look how many people had to say they were sorry this week.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So I don't know where this is going. Again, I'm already tired of talking about it, which probably means it's going to be a story we're going to be talking about for several more weeks, especially depending on what happens on Wednesday with Mox and CM Punk. And like you said, I don't see CM Punk dropping it, but I could. That yours theory is a very possible one where Mox does win and CM Punk wins it back in Chicago, which is kind of weird.
I think he's mad that Mox is more over than him. I really do.
I don't think so.
I think he's ego boy.
I just think
he should. You know what? He should have the main event at Winter is Coming because he's a little bit of a snowflake.
I don't think it's I think he came in knowing how beloved Mox was. I don't think this is a surprise to him. I think he knows this. I think he's aware of this, and
we'll see.
I just I don't know. It's very interesting. It will be interesting to see if MJF comes back, when he comes back, or if he comes back at Winter is Coming like I thought.
Did mention the Pinnacle this week also.
Yeah, seems like, and I'm telling you, those MJF
songs I'm like, but can Wardlow just like have his belt and like have his star,
right.
like can he do his thing? I would much rather see his. I hope that there's not some big. Just move on.
Yeah.
Like maybe they'll like try to be like, yo, you know, and he'll be like, dude, that's old news now.
Yeah.
So maybe they brought that up so that they could put it to bed for people.
Yeah, because to give it to like, I guess, a proper like closing or
with burial, like, maybe like MJF will be like, "Who the fuck are you guys? Get away from me!"
Right, exactly. Well, because like, I mean, so I guess when he comes back, does he come back with Shawn Spears? Because Shawn Spears hasn't been on TV since then.
Who knows?
I mean, so I don't. Yeah, there's some things that could. Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out and how much of the backstage stuff influences what happens next. And it's very interesting. So I have a feeling we'll be talking about it because like we were saying, so it depends on how that match ends, what happens at All Out, the follow-up to that, how you have Mox, because now you have Mox, you have MJF, maybe you've got CM Punk, I guess.
And we don't have a set card yet still.
No, there's still a lot of things that could happen.
I mean, we're recording. It's 2 weeks from today.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 2 weeks from today and that our pay-per-view takes place. Mm-hmm. And I think there's only like 4 actual.
And we thought, and now it's actually one less because we assumed it was Mox versus CM Punk, but we're getting that on Wednesday.
No, so maybe it's CM 100%.
Punk. Maybe it's Punk versus Mox 2. At this thing, maybe, I don't know. Guess we'll be talking about it, and then you'll hear us on the live stream after All Out, where we're talking about whatever ends up happening, and how the next phase of this plays out, and all that good stuff. So we shall.
And know that you want to see us on live streams, so
and come chat with us on live stream. We said that last week. Don't be mean to us, or if you're going to be mean, you have to pay us to read your mean comments on the air.
Or you can be mean to Paul because he'll be there with us, and people like being mean to him. So
poor Paul.
I don't. No, not poor Paul at all. Paul's a big grandpa. Okay, he can take care of himself.
He can. But yeah, so we'll get to you and when exactly we're going live, like how quickly we're going live after. We'll obviously follow us on Fight Game Media on YouTube, because if you subscribe, then you'll obviously if you click the little bell, I think it'll tell you when we go live.
As soon as we get that guy up there, you can hit the reminder and we'll work on
we'll tweet out the link to it. We'll probably post it everywhere. We'll post it on Facebook and
in the group.
And we're using Instagram more. I've posted some more pictures from New Japan.
Wait, here it is.
Yes, there you go. I've been posting some more pictures from New Japan High Alert show. Posted some stuff there. I'll post some GCW stuff there too. We'll probably post some reminders over there for the live stream as well, so you don't forget. And so, yeah. So we will be back next week. Who knows what the hell we'll be talking about? Probably more CM Punk, John Moxley, MJF stuff.
Nah.
Hopefully we'll have some long women's matches. Maybe we can talk about that instead.
There was an 18-minute women's match. It was
that
amazing.
wasn't on a pay-per-view.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. So, yeah. So thanks for joining us today. Yeah. Thanks for listening to us. We had some rants today, but we needed to get them out.
You know you love it.
And yeah. So I think that's yeah. We'll see you next week. Have a good week. And we'll be back soon.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Bye.